The afternoon sun beat down on Maya Rodriguez as she drove home from the hospital. After a 12-hour shift saving lives, all she wanted was a hot shower and to fall into bed next to her husband. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and faint circles shadowed her eyes. The radio played softly as she carefully navigated through the suburban streets of Oak Ridge. The flash of red and blue lights in her rearview mirror made her stomach drop. Maya checked her speed, 5 miles under the limit. She signaled and pulled over to the curb, her hands automatically moving to 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. She'd been through this before. Officer James Mercer took his time approaching her car. He walked with the cocky swagger of someone who enjoyed the power his uniform gave him. He tapped on her window with his knuckles harder than necessary. Maya rolled down her window and smiled politely. "Good afternoon, officer. License and registration." Officer Mercer didn't return her smile. His eyes narrowed as he looked at her, taking in her scrubs, her complexion, her accent. Of course. Maya reached slowly for her purse on the passenger seat. "May I ask why I've been pulled over?" "Taillights out," he said, though her car had passed inspection just last week. "Where are you coming from?" His tone suggested he already had assumptions about the answer. "I just finished my shift at Mercy General. I'm a neurosurgeon there." She handed over her license and registration, her hospital ID badge visible on her scrubs. Officer Mercer looked at her documents with exaggerated scrutiny. "Rodriguez, huh? How long have you been in this country, Miss Rodriguez?" "It's Dr. Rodriguez," she corrected gently. "And I was born in Philadelphia. I've lived in this neighborhood for 3 years." The officer's eyebrows shot up. "Doctor, right," his disbelief was plain. "And I suppose that fancy car is yours too?" Maya felt her cheeks burn but kept her voice steady. "Yes, it is. Officer, I've had a very long day. There's nothing wrong with my taillight and I'd like to get home. My husband is expecting me." "Well, we don't operate on your schedule around here." Officer Mercer leaned down, getting uncomfortably close to her face. "Step out of the vehicle." "Excuse me?" Maya's heart began to race. "Why?" "I said step out of the vehicle now." His hand moved to rest on his holster, a subtle threat that made Maya's mouth go dry. She unbuckled her seatbelt with shaking hands. "I don't understand what's happening. I haven't done anything wrong. That's not for you to decide." He stepped back, watching as she opened her door. "Turn around and put your hands on the car." Maya complied, her mind racing. Across the street, she noticed a woman had stopped walking her dog and was watching the scene unfold. The woman pulled out her phone. "Officer, I have an emergency surgery scheduled in 3 hours. A young boy with a brain tumor needs me at the hospital. Please, can we sort this out quickly?" Her voice remained calm, professional, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Officer Mercer snorted. "Sure you do. I've heard all kinds of stories, but that's a new one." He roughly patted her down, his hands lingering longer than necessary. "You people always have some excuse." "You people?" Maya turned her head slightly. "What exactly do you mean by that?" "Don't get smart with me." His voice hardened. "I know your type. Driving around in cars you can't afford, thinking you're better than everyone else." "I work 70 hours a week saving lives," Maya said, her patience wearing thin. "I earned everything I have, and I'd like to speak to your supervisor." That was when things escalated. Officer Mercer grabbed her wrist, twisting it behind her back. "You're being detained for questioning an officer and exhibiting suspicious behavior." "What?" Maya gasped as cold metal closed around her wrists. "This is ridiculous." "I've done nothing wrong. Keep talking back and we can add resisting arrest." He tightened the handcuffs until they bit into her skin. The woman across the street was definitely filming now, and a car slowed as it passed. Officer Mercer noticed the audience and straightened up, putting on a show of professionalism while keeping his grip tight on Maya's arm. "Please," Maya said, lowering her voice. "My patient needs me. You can verify my identity with the hospital." "My husband? Oh, now there's a husband?" Officer Mercer smirked. "Let me guess, he's a lawyer?" "No, he's—" Maya stopped herself, pride keeping her from mentioning David's position with the FBI. That shouldn't matter. She shouldn't need her husband's job to protect her from this injustice. Officer Mercer opened the back door of his patrol car. "Get in. Am I under arrest?" "What are the charges?" Maya stood her ground, knowing her rights despite the fear coursing through her. Interfering with an officer, for starters. Maybe driving under the influence. "We'll figure it out at the station." He pushed her head down, forcing her into the back seat. Maya winced as her shoulder struck the door frame. I'm not under the influence of anything except exhaustion from saving lives all day. This is wrong, and you know it. Officer Mercer slammed the door and walked around to the driver's side. Through the partition, Maya could see him speaking into his radio, a self-satisfied smile on his face. The patrol car pulled away from her vehicle, which sat abandoned by the curb. Maya looked back at the woman still filming, making eye contact and hoping the video would find its way to someone who could help. At the police station, Maya was led through a side entrance away from the main lobby. Officer Mercer's grip on her arm would leave bruises, she was certain. She was taken to a small room with a metal table bolted to the floor and 2 uncomfortable chairs. Sit, he ordered, finally removing the handcuffs. Maya rubbed her wrists, noting the red marks circling them like bracelets. I want to make a phone call, she said firmly. It's my right. You'll get your call when I say so. Officer Mercer towered over her, trying to intimidate her with his presence. First, we're going to have a little chat about your attitude. Maya sat straight in her chair, refusing to be cowed. My attitude? I was polite and cooperative until you started making assumptions about me based on my name and appearance. Officer Mercer laughed, a harsh sound without humor. Playing the race card already? Typical. I'm stating facts, Maya replied. Check my record. I've never even had a parking ticket. I'm a respected surgeon. I pay my taxes. I volunteer at the free clinic. And yet you treated me like a criminal from the moment you saw me. You think that fancy degree makes you special? He leaned in close again, his breath hot on her face. In my experience, people like you are always hiding something. The ones who act all high and mighty usually have the most to hide. A knock at the door interrupted them. A younger officer poked his head in. Sarge wants to see you, Mercer. Officer Mercer straightened up, annoyance flashing across his face. Watch her, he told the young officer before storming out. The younger officer, whose nameplate read Chen, looked uncomfortable. He stayed by the door, avoiding eye contact with Maya. Officer Chen, Maya said softly, I really need to make a phone call. My husband will be worried, and I have a patient who needs surgery this evening. Chen shifted his weight from one foot to the other. I'm not supposed to... Please, Maya pressed. You can stand right here while I make the call. I just need to let my husband know where I am. Chen seemed to be considering it when the door opened again. This time an older man with graying hair and sergeant's stripes entered the room. His name tag read Walsh. Dr. Rodriguez, Sergeant Walsh said, his tone noticeably more respectful than Mercer's had been. I understand there's been an incident. That's one way to put it, Maya replied. I was unlawfully detained while driving home from work. Officer Mercer was disrespectful, made racist comments, and physically manhandled me. And I still haven't been allowed to make my phone call. Walsh's lips thinned. He turned to Chen. Get the doctor a phone. As Chen hurried out, Walsh took the seat across from Maya. Officer Mercer has his own version of events, of course. I'm sure he does, Maya said. But there was at least one witness filming the encounter, and I'm certain your patrol cars have cameras. Something flickered in Walsh's eyes, concern perhaps, or calculation. We'll review all available evidence, Dr. Rodriguez. In the meantime, the door burst open again. Officer Mercer stormed in, face flushed with anger. You're letting her go? Just like that? She was resisting arrest, being combative. That's enough, Mercer, Walsh snapped. Wait outside. You always do this, Mercer snarled. Every time one of them plays the victim card, you fold like cheap cardboard. I said wait outside. Walsh stood, pointing to the door. Now! Mercer glared at Maya one last time before stomping out, slamming the door behind him. Walsh sighed heavily. I apologize for Officer Mercer's behavior. We'll be conducting a full investigation into this incident. Will you? Maya asked, skepticism clear in her voice. How many other incidents has Officer Mercer been involved in? How many investigations have there been? Before Walsh could answer, Chen returned with a phone. Maya took it gratefully, her fingers trembling slightly as she dialed David's number. What she didn't know yet was that the video of her arrest was already spreading across social media like wildfire. And her husband, FBI Special Agent David Rodriguez, had already been trying to reach her for the past hour. As the phone rang, Maya took a deep breath. This was far from over, but soon Officer Mercer would learn exactly who he had chosen to harass today, and the consequences would change everything. David Rodriguez paced the living room floor, his phone pressed to his ear as he tried Maya's number for the 10th time. Each unanswered ring tightened the knot in his stomach. This wasn't like her. Maya never turned off her phone, especially when she was on call. "Come on, pick up," he muttered, checking his watch again. She should have been home over an hour ago. The hospital had already called looking for her. Young Tommy Wilson's surgery was scheduled in less than 2 hours, and the surgical team couldn't proceed without her. David's training as an FBI agent kicked in. He opened his laptop and tracked Maya's phone location, a feature they had set up for emergencies. The blinking dot showed her at the Oak Ridge Police Department's main precinct. What the hell? His mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. He grabbed his keys, badge, and gun, then headed for the door. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Rodriguez," he answered, already halfway to his car. "David, it's me." Maya's voice was steady, but he knew her well enough to hear the strain beneath it. "Maya, are you okay? Why are you at the police station?" He slid into the driver's seat, putting the call on speaker as he started the engine. "I've been detained." Her words were careful, measured. "An Officer Mercer pulled me over, claimed my taillight was out." Things escalated when I questioned him. David's jaw clenched. "Are you hurt?" "Just my pride. And my wrists from the handcuffs." A pause. "David, I think you should know this was not random." He understood immediately. This wasn't their first encounter with prejudice. "I'm on my way. Sit tight. Wait, there's more." Maya lowered her voice. "Tommy Wilson's surgery. I need to be there. I'll handle it." David pulled onto the main road, his training helping him stay calm despite his fury. "Just hold on." As David drove toward the precinct across town, a woman named Lucia Patel was uploading a video to social media. "Just witnessed the most disgusting abuse of power," she wrote in the caption. "Woman in scrubs handcuffed and arrested for literally nothing. Police brutality. Oak Ridge. Share this." The video showed Maya's arrest from across the street, clear enough to see Officer Mercer's aggression and Maya's composed dignity. Within minutes, it had dozens of shares. Within half an hour, hundreds. At the hospital, Dr. Alan Winters was checking his phone between patients when the video appeared in his feed. He froze, recognizing his colleague immediately. "Oh my God," he muttered, watching in horror as Maya was forced into the police car. He rushed to the chief of surgery's office, phone in hand. Back at the police station, Maya sat alone in the interview room. They had taken her personal belongings, her phone, her hospital ID, even her wedding ring. The clock on the wall showed she had been there for almost 2 hours. Tommy's tumor wouldn't wait. The pressure was building in his brain, and every minute delayed increased the risk. The door opened, and Sergeant Walsh returned with a cup of water. "Your husband's on his way," he said, setting the cup before her. His tone had shifted noticeably since their earlier conversation. "We're processing your release paperwork." "What changed?" Maya asked, not touching the water. 20 minutes ago, Officer Mercer was ready to book me." Walsh shifted uncomfortably. "New information has come to light." "You mean the video?" Maya had seen Lucia filming. "Or did you finally check my credentials?" Before Walsh could answer, raised voices echoed from the hallway. Maya recognized David's voice, controlled but intense. "I want to see her now," he was saying. "And I want to speak with the arresting officer." The door opened and David entered, his FBI badge visible on his belt. His eyes found Maya's immediately, relief washing over his face. Behind him stood a nervous-looking desk sergeant and the young officer Chen. "Are you okay?" David asked, moving to her side. "I'm fine." Maya stood, gratefully accepting his quick embrace. She felt some of the tension leave her body at his presence. "But I need to get to the hospital." David turned to Walsh. "My wife hasn't been charged with anything. We're leaving now." Walsh nodded, suddenly deferential. "Of course, Agent Rodriguez. As I was explaining to Dr. Rodriguez, there appears to have been a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" David's voice was dangerously quiet. "My wife was handcuffed, denied her rights, and detained for 2 hours because of a misunderstanding." "David," Maya touched his arm. "Tommy's surgery." David nodded, refocusing. "We'll discuss this further, Sergeant. Where are my wife's belongings?" 10 minutes later, they were in David's car heading toward the hospital. Maya was making calls, rearranging the surgical schedule, her professional mask firmly back in place despite the red marks still visible on her wrists. "The video's everywhere," David said as he drove. "A friend from the field office sent it to me. That's how I knew something was wrong even before you called. Maya paused between calls. How bad is it? David glanced at her. It's clear enough to see what happened. Mercer's in trouble and he should be. I just wanted to get home. Maya sighed. Now I'm all over the internet and Tommy's surgery is delayed and… Hey, David reached for her hand. None of this is on you. None of it. At the hospital, news of Maya's detention had spread like wildfire. When she walked through the surgical floor doors, still in the same scrubs she'd been wearing all day, the staff fell silent. Then Dr. Winters stepped forward and embraced her. We've got Tommy prepped, he said. His parents have been worried sick, but I told them you were on your way. Thank you, Alan. Maya squeezed his hand gratefully. We saw the video, he added quietly. The whole staff is behind you, whatever you decide to do about it. Maya nodded, already mentally transitioning into surgeon mode. I'll see Tommy now. Can you have someone bring me fresh scrubs? While Maya prepared for surgery, David made his way to the hospital waiting room where Tommy's parents sat anxiously. He introduced himself, explaining only that Maya had been unavoidably delayed but was now preparing for surgery. We saw something on social media, Mrs. Wilson said, her eyes red from crying. Was that Dr. Rodriguez? Being arrested? There was an incident, David confirmed carefully. But I can assure you she's fully focused on Tommy now. Mr. Wilson shook his head. It's not right what happened to her. Tommy's been telling everyone his brain doctor is a superhero. Looks like he was right. Back at the precinct, Officer Mercer was being called into the captain's office. The phone lines were lighting up with calls from local media, and the video had now been picked up by several news stations. The mayor's office had already issued a statement promising a thorough investigation. You really stepped in at this time, Mercer, Captain Reynolds said, tossing a tablet across the desk. The video played silently, showing Mercer's confrontation with Maya from a clear angle. Do you have any idea who she is? Some entitled doctor who, Dr. Maya Rodriguez, Reynolds cut him off, is the head of pediatric neurosurgery at Mercy General. She's saving a kid's life right now, after you delayed her for 2 hours. And her husband? The guy who just walked out of here? He's FBI specializing in civil rights violations. Mercer's face paled slightly. She was disrespectful. Save it. Reynolds stood, looming over the desk. I've got the mayor, the hospital board, and now the FBI crawling up my ass because of you. You're on administrative leave, effective immediately. Turn in your badge and gun. That's just the beginning, Reynolds snapped. Internal Affairs will be reviewing your body cam footage, along with every complaint that's been filed against you in the past 5 years. And there are quite a few, aren't there, Mercer? Across town, as the evening news played footage of her arrest, Maya stood in an operating room focused entirely on the small brain displayed on her monitors. The world outside, with its injustice and chaos, would have to wait. Right now, Tommy needed her. And nothing, not Officer Mercer, not viral videos, not even her own trauma from the day, would distract her from saving this child's life. David sat in the waiting room with Tommy's parents, his phone buzzing constantly with updates from colleagues and friends who had seen the video. One message caught his attention, from his supervisor at the FBI field office. We need to talk about what happened to your wife. This isn't the first complaint about Oak Ridge PD. Come see me tomorrow. David looked up as a nurse hurried by. Through the large observation windows, he could see Maya working, her hands steady, her focus absolute. Despite everything that had happened, she was still exactly who she had always been. Dedicated, brilliant, unstoppable. And when this surgery was over, when Tommy was safe, David would make sure Officer Mercer and anyone else who had failed Maya today would face justice. The real battle was just beginning. The morning after Tommy's surgery, David sat in FBI Special Agent Ramirez's office, watching his supervisor review the footage of Maya's arrest for the 3rd time. Ramirez was a veteran agent with 20 years of experience investigating civil rights violations. Her face remained neutral as she watched, but her eyes hardened at certain moments. Your wife handled herself remarkably well. She said, finally pausing the video. Most people would have lost their composure. Maya deals with life or death situations every day, David replied. She's trained to stay calm under pressure. Still, Ramirez leaned back in her chair. This isn't her first experience with this sort of thing, is it? David shook his head. No, but it's the first time it's escalated to handcuffs and a holding cell. Ramirez tapped her desk thoughtfully. This video has 500,000 views now. The Oak Ridge PD is in damage control mode. They've already issued a statement saying Officer Mercer has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. That's not enough, David said, his voice firm but controlled. This isn't an isolated incident. Mercer has a history. I know, Ramirez nodded. We've been monitoring complaints against the Oak Ridge PD for some time. There's a pattern there. She met David's gaze directly. But you understand this is complicated. You're personally involved. I can be objective, David insisted. No, you can't. Ramirez's tone was kind but firm, and no one expects you to be, which is why I'm assigning Agent Thomas to lead the civil rights investigation. She held up a hand when David started to protest. You'll be kept in the loop, but you can't be directly involved. You know that's the right call. David exhaled slowly, acknowledging the truth in her words. What can I do? Support your wife. She's going to be approached by reporters, lawyers, activists. This story is gaining traction. The woman who recorded the video, Lucia Patel, gave an interview this morning talking about what she saw. Ramirez handed him a folder. This is everything we have on previous complaints against Mercer and the Oak Ridge PD. Review it, but don't act on it. Let Thomas do his job, and if I find something relevant, then you bring it to Thomas. Ramirez's expression softened slightly. David, I know how hard this is. If it were my spouse, she shook her head. Just remember that the best way to get justice is to follow procedure. Do this right. Meanwhile, at Oak Ridge Police Department, Captain Reynolds was facing a room full of officers for the morning briefing. The atmosphere was tense, with officers divided between those who supported Mercer and those who were embarrassed by his actions. Listen up, Reynolds said, silencing the murmurs. As you all know, we have a situation. Officer Mercer's interaction with Dr. Rodriguez yesterday has created significant public concern. Internal Affairs is conducting a full review, and the FBI has opened a civil rights investigation. A veteran officer named Peterson spoke up. So we're throwing Mercer under the bus because some doctor's husband has connections? Reynolds fixed him with a hard stare. We're investigating a potentially unlawful detention that was caught on camera and has been viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. And yes, the fact that the victim's husband is an FBI agent specializing in civil rights cases means this will receive extra scrutiny. He looked around the room. If anyone has concerns about that, they should examine their own conduct. Officer Chen, who had been present when Maya was released, raised his hand hesitantly. Sir, what about the body camera footage? Being reviewed, Reynolds replied, along with dash cam footage and Mercer's previous incidents. He paused, his expression grim. Which brings me to my next point. IA will be reviewing complaint files for the past 5 years. If any of you have incidents you're concerned about, now would be the time to come forward. The room fell silent. Several officers avoided eye contact. That's what I thought, Reynolds said quietly. Dismissed. Chen, stay behind. As the room cleared out, Reynolds motioned Chen to follow him into his office. You were there when Dr. Rodriguez was released, Reynolds said, closing the door. What did you observe? Chen shifted uncomfortably. Sir, Officer Mercer was agitated when he found out who Dr. Rodriguez was. He made some comments that were inappropriate, Reynolds suggested. Yes, sir. He seemed angry that she was being released and made remarks about special treatment. Chen hesitated. Sir, this isn't the first time I've seen Officer Mercer behave this way with certain citizens. Reynolds studied the young officer. Why haven't you reported this before? Chen looked down. You know how it is, sir. No one wants to be labeled a rat. Even when a fellow officer is violating someone's rights. Reynolds shook his head. I need a full statement from you. And Chen? This stays between us for now. Across town at Mercy General Hospital, Maya was checking on Tommy after his successful surgery. The boy was awake, pale but smiling weakly as she examined his pupils. You did great, Tommy, she said, returning his smile. The tumor is completely gone. You'll be playing soccer again before you know it. My mom showed me the video, Tommy said unexpectedly, of the police officer being mean to you. Were you scared? Maya paused, considering how to answer. A little, she admitted. But I knew I needed to stay calm so I could be here to help you. Mom says you're a hero, Tommy said, his eyelids drooping from medication. Not just for fixing my brain, but for being brave. Your mom is very kind, Maya said, touched by the comment. She gently adjusted his blanket. Get some rest now. Outside Tommy's room, Mrs. Wilson waited to speak with Maya. "Doctor, I don't know how to thank you. After everything you went through yesterday, you still came and saved my son. It's my job," Maya said simply. "Tommy's going to be fine." Mrs. Wilson hesitated, then added, "The nurses told me reporters have been calling the hospital asking to speak with you. There's a small crowd of them outside the main entrance." Maya sighed. This was the part she'd been dreading. "Thank you for letting me know." As Maya walked toward the staff exit, hoping to avoid the media, her phone rang. It was David. "How's it going?" she asked. "Ramirez has assigned Agent Thomas to investigate," he replied. "I'm being kept at arm's length as expected." "That's probably for the best," Maya said, pushing through the door to the parking garage. "I just finished checking on Tommy. He's doing well." "That's great news." David paused. "Listen, Maya, there are reporters at the house, and probably at the hospital too." "Already spotted them," she confirmed, scanning the garage cautiously. "I'm taking the back exit." "I think we should make a statement," David said. "Get ahead of this. I've already had calls from 3 civil rights attorneys offering to represent you pro bono." Maya stopped walking. "I don't want this to become a circus, David. I just want to do my job." "I know." His voice softened. "But this is bigger than us now. That video. People are angry, Maya, and they should be. What happened to you happens to people every day. People without your credentials or connections. The difference is you have a platform now." Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking about Tommy, asking if she had been scared. About all the people who had similar encounters with police but didn't have an FBI agent spouse or MD after their name. "Okay," she said finally, "but we do this on our terms. No exploitation, no politics. Just the truth. That's all we need," David assured her. "I'll pick you up at the staff entrance in 10 minutes. As David drove to the hospital, his phone buzzed with a message from Agent Thomas. New development. 3 more officers have come forward with concerns about Mercer's past conduct. Meeting at 3 p.m. to discuss. You're welcome to observe." At the Oak Ridge Police Department, Officer Mercer sat in his apartment, watching the news coverage of his suspension. His union representative had already advised him to lay low and avoid making statements. But as he scrolled through social media, seeing himself portrayed as the villain, his anger grew. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Peterson, it's Mercer. I need a favor. Find out everything you can about David Rodriguez. This FBI agent thinks he can come after me. Let's see what skeletons he's hiding." Peterson hesitated. "I don't know, man. This is getting serious. Internal Affairs is pulling all your files." "Just do it," Mercer snapped. "We've covered for each other for years. Don't bail on me now." What Mercer didn't know was that his call was one of many being monitored as part of the expanding investigation. As he plotted his revenge, the case against him was growing stronger by the hour. At exactly 2:45 p.m., David pulled up to the hospital staff entrance where Maya waited. She slid into the passenger seat looking tired but resolved. "Ready?" he asked gently. "No," she admitted with a small smile, "but let's do it anyway." As they drove toward the FBI field office for the meeting with Agent Thomas, neither realized that the confrontation between Maya and Officer Mercer had set in motion events that would, ultimately expose years of misconduct and change the Oak Ridge Police Department forever. 1 week after Maya's arrest, the Rodriguez home had become command central for what was now a full-blown investigation. Maya sat at the kitchen table with Agent Thomas, reviewing the statement she'd prepared for the press conference scheduled for that afternoon. "This looks good. Dr. Rodriguez," Thomas said, sliding the paper back across the table. "Clear, factual, and impactful. Will it make a difference?" Maya asked, folding the paper carefully. "Or is this just going to be another story that fades away in a few days?" Thomas shook his head. "This case isn't going away. The video was just the beginning. What we've uncovered since then..." He glanced toward the living room where David was on the phone with Ramirez. "Let's just say Officer Mercer's personnel file is quite illuminating." Maya wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "How many complaints?" 17 in the past 3 years, Thomas replied. "Most were dismissed or buried, but they show a clear pattern of behavior." The front doorbell rang. David ended his call and went to answer it, returning moments later with Lucia Patel, the woman who had recorded Maya's arrest. "Thank you for coming," Maya said, standing to greet her. "I haven't had a chance to thank you properly for what you did." Lucia shook her head. "I should have done more. Maybe stepped in somehow. You did exactly the right thing, David assured her. That video is the reason we're getting traction with this investigation. Lucia set her bag on the table and pulled out a notebook. I've been contacted by 6 other people who've had encounters with Officer Mercer. They saw the video and recognized him immediately. She pushed the notebook toward Agent Thomas. They've all agreed to give statements. Thomas flipped through the notes, his expression growing more serious with each page. This is extremely helpful, Ms. Patel. Would you be willing to help us get in touch with these individuals?
That's why I'm here, Lucia said firmly.
What happened to Dr. Rodriguez wasn't right, and it wasn't an isolated incident. While they continued discussing the case, across town at the Oak Ridge Police Department, Officer Chen sat nervously outside the Internal Affairs office. Inside, investigators were questioning Officer Peterson about his communications with Mercer. We have records of 16 phone calls between you and Officer Mercer since his suspension, the IA investigator said, sliding a printout across the table. Care to explain the nature of these conversations? Peterson shifted uncomfortably. Just checking on a friend. Is that against department policy now? No, but accessing personal information about an FBI agent and his family for the purpose of intimidation certainly is. The investigator produced another document. Your searches on the department database are logged, Officer Peterson. We know you looked up David Rodriguez's home address, vehicle registration, and professional history. Peterson's face paled. I was just curious. And then shared that information with Officer Mercer, who has made several threatening comments about Agent Rodriguez on social media, under a fake account. The investigator leaned forward. We're not playing games here. This investigation has federal oversight now. Your best option is to cooperate fully. Peterson looked down at his hands. Look, Mercer's been on the force a long time. He's got friends in high places. Had, the investigator corrected. Those friends are suddenly very quiet now that the mayor's office is involved. Outside in the waiting area, Chen watched as Captain Reynolds stormed down the hallway, his face flushed with anger. He entered an office at the end of the hall and slammed the door. Through the glass, Chen could see Reynolds arguing with someone, Deputy Chief Howard, whose face appeared equally furious. Chen's phone buzzed with a text from a fellow officer. Press conference at 2 p.m., Dr. Rodriguez speaking publicly for first time. Whole station watching. At Mercy General Hospital, Maya had stopped by to check on Tommy one last time before heading to the press conference. The boy was sitting up in bed, his color much improved, playing a video game. How's my favorite patient? Maya asked, entering the room. Tommy's face lit up. Dr. Rodriguez, Mom said you might not come today because of your big TV thing. I wouldn't miss checking on you, Maya said, picking up his chart. Besides, I wanted to see how that incision is healing. As Maya examined the surgical site, Tommy asked, Are you going to talk about that bad police officer on TV? Maya considered how to answer. Yes, I am. But you know what? It's not just about one officer who made bad choices. It's about making sure everyone is treated fairly. Like when Brian took my action figure at school and Ms. Lopez made him apologize and promise not to do it again, Tommy suggested. Maya smiled. Something like that, but bigger. Sometimes grown-ups need to be reminded about being fair, too. After completing her examination and noting Tommy's excellent progress, Maya headed for the door. Dr. Rodriguez? Tommy called after her. You're going to win. Maya paused, touched by his simple faith. I hope so, Tommy. At 1:45 p.m., Maya and David arrived at the federal building where the press conference would be held. The front steps were crowded with reporters, community activists, and curious onlookers. Agent Ramirez met them at a side entrance. Quite a turnout, she observed. We've got representatives from the Justice Department, the mayor's office, and several civil rights organizations inside already. David squeezed Maya's hand. You okay? Maya nodded, though her heart was racing. I just want to get through this without breaking down or saying something I'll regret. Just speak your truth, David said quietly. That's all anyone can ask. Inside, as Maya prepared to address the gathered press, Officer Mercer sat alone in his apartment, watching the coverage on his television. His phone had been ringing constantly for days, reporters, fellow officers, even his mother. But he had stopped answering. The department had issued a statement distancing themselves from his actions. His union representative had gently suggested he might want to consider resignation. Mercer's apartment was littered with empty beer cans and takeout containers. On the coffee table sat printouts of information about David and Maya Rodriguez, their home address, David's service record, Maya's professional history. His original plan to intimidate or discredit them had faded as the investigation expanded beyond his control. He turned up the volume as Maya stepped up to the microphone, her face calm and resolved. "Good afternoon," she began. "My name is Dr. Maya Rodriguez. 1 week ago, I was unlawfully detained by Officer James Mercer of the Oak Ridge Police Department while driving home from my shift at Mercy General Hospital." As Maya recounted her experience in clear, measured terms, Mercer felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. She wasn't emotional or vindictive. She was worse, precise and factual, describing exactly what had happened in a way that left no room for interpretation or excuse. At the police station, officers gathered in the break room to watch the press conference. The room was unusually quiet, the usual banter absent. When Maya finished speaking, Agent Thomas took the podium to announce that the FBI's Civil Rights Division was opening a formal investigation, not only into the incident with Dr. Rodriguez, but into the broader pattern of complaints against Officer Mercer and the Oak Ridge PD's handling of those complaints. "The evidence suggests," Thomas stated clearly, "that Officer Mercer's conduct reflects a pattern of discriminatory policing that was enabled by inadequate oversight and accountability within the department." Captain Reynolds, watching from his office, closed his eyes briefly. His phone rang. "The deputy chief, did you hear that?" Howard asked without preamble. "They're coming after the whole department now." "They're doing their job," Reynolds replied wearily. "And we haven't been doing ours. You know it, I know it, and now the whole world knows it." "This is going to get ugly," Howard warned. "It's already ugly," Reynolds said. "Has been for years. We just didn't want to see it." Back at the press conference, a reporter asked Maya, "Dr. Rodriguez, what outcome are you hoping for from this investigation?" Maya considered the question carefully before responding. "I want accountability, not just for what happened to me, but for everyone who has experienced similar treatment but lacked the resources or platform to speak out. I want systematic change that ensures no one faces discrimination or abuse from those sworn to protect and serve. And I want Officer Mercer to understand the impact of his actions, not just on me, but on public trust in law enforcement as a whole." As she spoke, Officer Chen, watching from the station break room, made a decision. He slipped out and headed directly to the Internal Affairs office. "I need to make a statement," he told the investigator, "about other incidents I've witnessed involving Officer Mercer." Across town, Mercer switched off his TV and reached for his phone. His hands trembled slightly as he dialed his union representative. "It's Mercer," he said when the man answered. "I'm ready to talk about a deal." But it was too late for deals. As Maya and David left the press conference, Agent Thomas approached them with news. "3 more officers have come forward with information," he said quietly, "and we've obtained text messages between Mercer and several superior officers showing they were aware of complaints and actively worked to suppress them." He looked at David meaningfully. "This just became much bigger than one officer." Maya took David's hand. "What happens now?" "Now," Thomas replied, "we follow the evidence wherever it leads." As they walked to their car, surrounded by security, Maya thought about Tommy's simple prediction, "You're going to win." But this wasn't about winning anymore. It was about truth, justice, and the long, difficult process of creating real change. 6 months after Maya's arrest, the Rodriguez living room was filled with people gathered around the television. David handed out drinks while Maya arranged a tray of snacks on the coffee table. The local news was about to begin, and tonight's lead story was the one they'd all been waiting for. "Everyone ready?" David asked, taking a seat beside Maya on the couch. He squeezed her hand as the news anchor's familiar face appeared on screen. "And good evening. Tonight we bring you the conclusion of a story that began 6 months ago, with a traffic stop that changed our community forever. The Justice Department has released its findings on the investigation into the Oak Ridge Police Department, sparked by the unlawful detention of Dr. Maya Rodriguez." The screen showed footage of a press conference where a Justice Department official stood at a podium. "Our investigation has uncovered a pattern of discriminatory policing practices within the Oak Ridge Police Department dating back at least 7 years," the official announced. "These practices were enabled by inadequate oversight, failure to properly investigate citizen complaints, and a culture that protected officers with histories of misconduct. Maya felt a wave of emotions as she listened. Vindication, certainly, but also a deep sadness that it had taken her traumatic experience to bring these issues to light. The news anchor continued. As a result of these findings, the Oak Ridge Police Department will operate under a consent decree for the next 5 years. This agreement requires the department to implement extensive reforms, including new training protocols, complaint procedures, and accountability measures. Lucia Patel, sitting in an armchair across from Maya, nodded with satisfaction. 6 months of work and we finally got some real change. It wouldn't have happened without you, Maya reminded her. In the months since the incident, Lucia had become an unexpected friend and ally, helping to collect testimonies from others who had experienced similar treatment. The news segment shifted to show Officer Mercer leaving a courtroom in handcuffs. Former Officer James Mercer, who was fired from the department 3 months ago, has pleaded guilty to civil rights violations and will serve 18 months in federal prison. 3 superior officers, including Deputy Chief Howard, have resigned amid findings that they deliberately suppressed complaints against Mercer and other officers. Agent Thomas, who had been leaning against the wall, shook his head. 18 months isn't enough. It's more than most officers ever get for this kind of misconduct, David pointed out. And the civil case is still pending. On screen, the anchor was now interviewing Captain Reynolds, who had kept his position and become an unexpected advocate for reform. We failed our community, Reynolds admitted on camera. We had multiple warnings about certain officers, including Mercer, and we didn't take appropriate action. That's on us as leadership, and we're committed to doing better. Officer Chen appeared briefly in a segment about officers who had come forward with information. He had recently been promoted to a new community outreach unit created as part of the reforms. As the news segment ended, everyone in the living room seemed to release a collective breath. So that's it, Maya said quietly. It's really over. Not quite, Lucia reminded her. The Community Oversight Board still needs to be established, and implementation of the reforms will take years. But it's a start, David said. A real one. The doorbell rang. David answered it to find Dr. Winters and a small group from the hospital, including some of Maya's patients and their families. Tommy Wilson, now fully recovered from his surgery, bounded in with a bouquet of flowers. We saw it on TV at the hospital, he announced, handing the flowers to Maya. Mom said we should come say congratulations. Maya hugged the boy, careful of his healing head. Thank you, Tommy. These are beautiful. As the gathering turned into an impromptu celebration, Maya found herself reflecting on the unexpected journey of the past 6 months. What had begun as a terrifying and humiliating experience had transformed into something powerful. She had never wanted to be an activist or the face of a movement. She had just wanted to be a doctor, to help her patients, to live her life without fear or discrimination. Now she was both, still the dedicated surgeon, but also something more. Across town, Officer Mercer sat in a holding cell awaiting transport to federal prison. His lawyer had told him he'd gotten off easy with the plea deal. The evidence against him had been overwhelming, and a trial would likely have resulted in a much longer sentence. The cell was cold and sterile, so different from the power and freedom he'd felt patrolling the streets of Oak Ridge. In quiet moments like this, he sometimes thought about the many lives he'd impacted, not just Dr. Rodriguez, but all the others who had filed complaints over the years, people whose names he couldn't even remember, but who surely remembered him. His thoughts were interrupted by a guard. Mercer, phone call. At the Rodriguez home, as the evening wound down and guests began to leave, David found Maya standing alone in the kitchen. You okay? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Just thinking, she replied, leaning into him, about what comes next. Whatever you want, David said. You've done enough. No one would blame you for stepping back now. Maya turned to face him. I can't step back. Not when there's still so much work to do. She had been asked to serve on the new Community Oversight Board, to help shape the training programs that would teach officers about unconscious bias and de-escalation techniques. I keep thinking about all the people who experienced what I did or worse but didn't have my resources or platform. David nodded. He had known this would be her answer, had seen how the experience had awakened something in his wife that couldn't be put back to sleep. Well, you won't be doing it alone, he promised. The last to leave was Agent Thomas, who had become a friend as well as a colleague. At the door, he handed David a thick folder. "The final report," he said. "I thought you both might want a copy for yourselves." "Thank you," David said, taking the folder. "For everything," Thomas shook his head. "Your wife did the hard part. Standing up, speaking out. That takes real courage." After Thomas left, Maya and David sat together on the porch swing, looking out at their quiet street. The folder sat between them, the official record of an incident that had changed not just their lives, but an entire community. "You know," Maya said after a while, "when I was sitting in that holding cell, all I could think about was getting to Tommy's surgery. I wasn't thinking about changing the world or reforming the police department. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest moments," David replied. "One person saying this isn't right and having the courage to stand by that." Maya nodded, watching a neighbor walk his dog across the street. The man waved, and she waved back. 6 months ago, she might have kept her head down, avoiding eye contact. Old habits formed from too many uncomfortable encounters. But something had shifted inside her. The fear was still there. She wasn't naive enough to think one investigation could erase centuries of systemic problems, but something else had grown alongside it. A sense of power, of purpose. The next morning, Maya returned to the hospital for her regular shift. As she made her rounds, checking on patients, reviewing charts, consulting with colleagues, she felt a sense of normalcy that had been missing for months. Here in these halls, she was simply Dr. Rodriguez, the surgeon who fixed broken bodies and saved lives. But as she passed the hospital lobby, she noticed a young woman being interviewed by a local news crew. The woman was describing her own encounter with police misconduct and citing Maya's case as inspiration for coming forward. One of the nurses noticed Maya watching and came to stand beside her. "You've started something important," she said quietly. "I didn't start it," Maya corrected her. "I just refused to let it be buried." Later that day, Maya received an email from the mayor's office confirming her appointment to the Community Oversight Board. As she read it, her phone rang. David calling to check in. "How's your day?" He asked. "Busy," she replied. "But good." "Really good?" As they talked, Maya looked out her office window at the city sprawling below. Somewhere out there, Officer Mercer was beginning his sentence. Somewhere, Captain Reynolds was implementing new training protocols. Somewhere, another person was perhaps finding the courage to speak up about injustice because they had seen her do the same. The world hadn't changed overnight, but it had changed. And sometimes that was enough. "I'll see you at home," she told David. "I love you." "Love you too," he replied. "And Maya, I'm proud of you." After they hung up, Maya returned to her work, to the patients who needed her, to the life she had built. It was the same life, but different now, expanded to include a new purpose, a new voice, a new understanding of her own power. And that, perhaps, was the greatest justice of all.